From the halls of Montezuma, Kansas, that is, to wherever you may be, this is the Sure and Secure Podcast, a ministry of Morningside Community Church, helping you become sure that Christianity is true and that your salvation is secure through Jesus Christ. I'm Pastor Tim Erickson. Thanks for listening today. There's a song in our culture that's in the same category as the happy birthday song. We sing this song perhaps on special occasions when we're celebrating someone, and it's that song that just goes like this: "For he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny." Well, in our argument for the truthfulness of Christianity, we have come to the point where we have offered compelling evidence that Jesus is, in fact, the Son of God. And that's a claim that nobody should deny. We'll review why that is on the podcast today as we continue to go through the contents of the book, 12 Points That Show Christianity is True by Dr. Norman Geisler. Now let's review again the points we've already talked about on previous episodes, just in case you haven't heard some of those episodes, or just in case you also need a refresher on some of those points. Point number 1 was this: truth about reality is knowable. We can know more than just mere opinions, even about some of the most important questions of life, even about questions concerning religion. We can know more than just opinions. We can know truth. We can know reality as it is. One thing we know is point number 2. Opposites cannot both be true. If two claims contradict each other, one of them, if it's true, the other one has to be false. Point number 3 then was this: it is true that the theistic God exists. And remember, when we're talking about the theistic God, we're talking about God essentially as he was revealed in the Old Testament, as the almighty creator of all things, the one and only God, the one in a category all by himself, the one who is the origin of our morality and of our intellectual capabilities and all of those different things. Point number 4 was this: miracles are possible. Since there is a God, then there is a being who can perform acts of God. And so miracles are possible. Point number 5 then was this: miracles performed in connection with a truth claim confirm the truth of God through a messenger of God. So the presence or absence of miracles is a way to confirm whether someone who was claiming to speak for God really does speak for him. If God put his seal of approval on that messenger by giving him miraculous powers, then that's confirmation that he is indeed speaking for God. Point number 6 then was this: the New Testament documents are reliable. They tell us true history. They are not simply stories that were made up long after the events supposedly happened. No, the New Testament is reliable history. And the documents of the New Testament have been accurately copied over the years and handed down to us today so that we can know what those documents originally said. Point number 7 then was an observation from the New Testament. As witnessed in the New Testament, Jesus claimed to be God. That was a claim that Jesus himself made. Nobody else put words in his mouth. Then point number 8, Jesus' claim to be God was proven by a unique convergence of miracles. So God put his stamp of approval, his seal of approval, onto Jesus and the message that Jesus proclaimed by performing miracles through Jesus. And on that episode of the podcast, we talked in particular about how Jesus fulfilled many prophecies that had been made in the Old Testament. We talked about his sinless life and his miraculous resurrection from the grave. We actually didn't even focus so much on the miracles that Jesus himself performed, but those are further evidence that he is who he claimed to be. And point number 9 for today, then, is essentially the conclusion that we can draw from the claims of Jesus and the miraculous confirmation. Point number 9 is this: Jesus was God in human flesh. Jesus was supernaturally confirmed to be exactly who he claimed to be. So point number 9 really just states the conclusion that we can draw from points 7 and 8. Jesus did in fact claim to be the Son of God. He offered miraculous confirmation of that claim, and so therefore Jesus was God in human flesh. He really is who he claimed to be. Now, in this chapter, Dr. Geisler reviewed some criteria for miraculous confirmation that he had first outlined in chapter 5, in point number 5. Now, we really didn't talk about these criteria at any length in that episode of the podcast, but it's worth our time to focus on those here in this episode and just review these criteria that Dr. Geisler refers to as safeguards that help us make sure we draw the proper conclusion from miraculous confirmation. He lists 5 criteria. The first is this: the events in question must be truly supernatural events. Nothing that could just be reproduced by sleight of hand or anything like that. Nothing that could even just be in the category of maybe a psychosomatic cure, where perhaps someone feels better for a time because they are convinced that they have been cured, when in fact they have not, and after some time they go back to suffering from the same infirmity that they had before. Now, the miracles that Jesus performed bear the hallmarks of being truly supernatural. Think of things like walking on the water. And we can see that was supernatural from the fact that after Peter first went out on the waves, then he started to sink under the water himself. Jesus was using power that was clearly supernatural. Or we can think about the feeding of the 5,000, or instances when Jesus healed someone when he wasn't even physically present with them. Instances where he just simply spoke the word, and a person far away from him, who didn't even know what was going on, was healed at that moment. So the miracles of Christ were truly supernatural events. And of course, we could point again to the prophecies that he fulfilled and the fact that he rose from the dead. Criteria number 2 was this: there should be multiple miracles. Multiple miracles simply add more and more weight as evidence. For this, Dr. Geisler drew on the Old Testament principle from Deuteronomy 17:6 that said that in legal matters, questions under dispute were to be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. When there's additional testimony, then the fact of the matter just becomes all the more apparent. And with multiple miracles, the miraculous confirmation likewise becomes all the more apparent. Well, our Lord Jesus did numerous miracles throughout his ministry. In fact, in this chapter, Dr. Geisler lists 56 separate miracles that he performed during the course of his public ministry. And so that certainly adds tremendous weight to the miraculous confirmation. Criteria number 3 was this: the miracles should be in connection with some truth claim in the name of God. Now, let me point out 2 things from that criterion there. First, the miracle needs to be in connection with some truth claim. This might seem counterintuitive at first, but it's actually true. If you witnessed a miracle that had no context to it, it wasn't associated with any claims that anyone was making, you wouldn't know what that miracle was supposed to prove to you. You wouldn't know what you were supposed to learn from that miracle, what kind of conclusion you were supposed to draw, because it would be a sign that's not signifying anything. One of the reasons why miracles are sometimes referred to as signs is that they're intended to point beyond themselves to confirm a claim that was made in the name of God. So the miracle needs to be in connection with some truth claim, and this is vital as well. That truth claim needs to be made in the name of God. The Bible itself actually warns us that a false prophet or even Satan may try to deceive people with signs and wonders. Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 3, for example, says this: "If a prophet or someone who has dreams arises among you and proclaims a sign or wonder to you, and that sign or wonder he has promised you comes about," listen to that, it actually happened. "But," he says, "let's follow other gods which you have not known, and let's worship them. Do not listen to that prophet's words or to that dreamer. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul." So, that's envisioning a scenario where a false prophet may actually be able to give a sign or perform a wonder. But the fact that the prophet then encourages idolatry reveals that this event did not come from God. This sign or this wonder did not come from God. It came instead from evil spiritual powers. 2 Thessalonians 2:9 also warns us about how Satan in the end times will work miracles and signs and wonders in order to deceive people. That verse says this: "The coming of the lawless one," that would be the Antichrist, "is based on Satan's working with every kind of miracle, both signs and wonders serving the lie, and with every wicked deception among those who are perishing. They perish because they did not accept the love of the truth and so be saved." We do have to remember that Satan can also exercise his power in this world. And his power would technically be supernatural, since it's beyond the forces that are at work in the natural world. But we have to understand that his working, of course, would be evil and deceptive. So the claim must be made in the name of God. In order to point people toward God, the claim must be made in the service of God and not in the service of idolatry or false teaching. The next criterion is this: a predictive element confirms a miracle's supernatural nature. A prediction in connection with a miracle is like evidence for the evidence, or it's like proof of the proof. The miracle confirms the truthfulness of the claim that is made, but the predictive element offers proof that the miracle really was genuine, that this wasn't some kind of a fluke or an anomaly. If we are told exactly what's going to happen and then it happens, well, the predictive quality of that exhibits a whole nother level of power and supernatural control. And the final criterion was this: the miracles must be unique. And now here Dr. Geisler is pointing out the reality that various religions have made claims to be confirmed by miracles. Some religions have claimed that more than others. And what he points out here is that if numerous religions have in fact been confirmed by miracles, then those miracles would cancel each other out as far as serving as evidence. They wouldn't show us then which religion is true, because this religion had miracles and that other religion had miracles and yet another religion had miracles. And so if they all had miracles, then the power of miracles to serve as evidence would be negated. Their power as evidence would be null and void, because we wouldn't know then which religion had truly been confirmed by miracles. So at this point then, we have to compare the miracles of Christianity to the other major theistic religions that exist in our world to see if Christianity has in fact been confirmed by miracles over and above the other theistic religions. Now, why do we need to focus on theistic religions in particular? Well, it's because back in point number 3 of our argument for Christianity, we demonstrated that the theistic God really does exist. And again, that's just simply talking about the creator God who made and sustained all things, this God who has a mind of his own, a will of his own. He is accomplishing purposes through his creative act. And so religions that don't proclaim such a God have already been shown to be false. So pantheistic religions like Hinduism or Buddhism, or religions that are polytheistic, have already been shown to be false, and so they cannot be candidates for serving as the true religion. So we need to compare Christianity to Judaism and to Islam to see if Christianity really has been miraculously confirmed over and above those other religions. Well, one of the interesting things that we see about Judaism is that after the time of Christ, Judaism became a non-miraculous religion. Now, here's what I mean. Judaism, of course, has its roots in the Old Testament. It has its roots in figures like Abraham and Moses. And Moses, of course, was a miracle worker. And Judaism embraces all of the Old Testament. And so all of the miracle workers in the Old Testament are part of the heritage of Judaism. But what's interesting to note is that after the time of Christ, when Judaism officially rejected Jesus as their Messiah, Judaism then became a non-miraculous religion. In other words, there's no history of miracles in Judaism after the life of Christ. And there certainly has been no miracle performed or offered in order to support the claim of Judaism that Jesus is not the Son of God. In other words, their denial of the claims of Jesus has not been confirmed by supernatural miracles. And so certainly when Christianity is compared to Judaism, we can see that Christianity clearly has the divine stamp of approval because of the miracles that God performed in order to validate the truthfulness of Christianity. And of course, don't forget, even after Christ returned to heaven, God continued to testify about the truth of Christianity by performing miracles through the apostles. So the appointed messengers of Christ were also confirmed to be true spokesmen of God by miraculous powers. So this leaves us then with the need to compare Christianity to Islam. Now, in Islam, of course, the central figure of their religion is Muhammad. Muhammad, as you might know, lived about 7 centuries after the life of Christ. And so he came after Christianity had been well established in the Near East. And Muhammad produced the Quran. Now, the claim about that book is that Muhammad essentially served as a messenger of God, reciting things that he had been told by God, and other people then wrote them down into the book that is now known as the Quran. And the most pertinent fact for us to consider about this is that there is no record in the Quran that Muhammad ever performed a miracle. Now remember, that is the document that Muhammad himself produced. And yet, in his own document, he never claimed to have performed a miracle. Now, there are a few verses here and there that some Muslims since that time have pointed to in order to say, oh, this may have been a miracle that Muhammad performed, or that may have been a miracle. But even Islamic scholars are not in agreement that there is any claim of a miracle by Muhammad himself. Now, after Muhammad passed away, in the decades and even the centuries after his life, there were some claims that arose about various miracles that he supposedly performed. And these can be found in the collection of documents that's known as the Hadith. And these are stories about Muhammad and how he lived and things that he did that are not included in the Quran. So again, these are not coming directly from Muhammad himself, but rather they are claims made by other people. Now, remember, one of the things that we pointed out about Jesus was that he himself claimed to be the Son of God. He himself claimed to have miraculous powers, and he did miraculous deeds. But for Muhammad, the case is very different. Yes, he claimed to be a messenger of God, but he did not claim to have miraculous powers. And he never claimed to perform a miracle in order to support his claims that he was a messenger of God. Now, even the miracles that are mentioned about Muhammad in the Hadith, even these claims are not universally accepted by Islamic scholars. Islamic scholars disagree about which stories in the Hadith are actually authentic. And so the evidentiary value of those claims is not very strong whatsoever when even Islamic scholars disagree about whether some of these individual stories can be considered to have actually happened in Muhammad's life. And so claims that Muhammad performed miracles are highly suspect. And actually, they are so suspect that many Islamic scholars do not try to use such claims in order to defend Islam. They more frequently say that the Quran itself is Muhammad's supernatural confirmation. And one detail that they will often point to is the fact that Muhammad was apparently illiterate, and yet he produced this document. And they will often stress the literary beauty, the literary value and quality of this document, and make the claim that an illiterate man could not have produced such a writing unless he actually was serving as a messenger of God. Well, keep in mind that literary quality and literary beauty are very subjective evaluations. I mean, what one person considers to be beautiful in the area of literature might not be seen the same way by someone else. We also have to remember, as Dr. Geisler points out in this chapter, that beauty cannot serve as a reliable test for truth, because truth can be stated in a fashion that's not very beautiful at all. And yet it's still true because it expresses the way things really are. On the other hand, falsehood can be expressed in extremely beautiful ways, and yet that doesn't change the fact that it is false. So, beauty is not a reliable criterion to determine if something is true. So, in the final analysis, Christianity completely overshadows Islam with its miraculous confirmation. Christianity has been shown to be true by the fact that God has miraculously confirmed those who were not only its central figures, but also its messengers as well, men like the apostles who served as the hand-picked messengers of our Lord Jesus Christ. So, as we have seen from our case, since Jesus himself claimed to be God and confirmed the truth of that claim by miraculous confirmation, then he is indeed the Son of God. He's exactly who he claimed to be. And we'll see why that is so significant then for our beliefs about the Bible as we start to take a look in the next few episodes at what Jesus had to say about the Bible and its trustworthiness and its ultimate origin. But we'll save that for the future episodes of the podcast as we finish out the study of this book, 12 Points That Show Christianity is True. I want to thank you for listening to the podcast today. Thank you so much if you have subscribed to the podcast. That really helps to support what we're trying to accomplish here in order to get this truth out to others. So thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for listening. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, I hope that you will share it with others. Thank you for once again giving me the opportunity today to teach you something to the glory of God.